Tribune, they can go in the Voice and Viewpoint under the California Government Code. And so we are very excited about um, trying to live up to the motto that we carry. We say we're here to serve San Diego's African and African American communities, and we like to remind you that a people without a voice cannot be heard. Dr. Thompson.
Well, Dr. Warren, again, this is African American History Month. For some, it's Black History Month. For some, it is the month that we celebrate the culture called African and African American. I'm excited because we have gone through the month. We're getting to the climax of the month. But the one thing I love about being a part and partnering with the Voice and Viewpoint is that African American news, African American history is a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week experience every time that you tap in. And again, just loving the app. Both our apps are, really growing, and
Yes.
people are subscribing to it. And it's important that if you want to stay connected and know what's going on, not just in San Diego, but worldwide, this is the format that you need to be on, GOD Radio 1 and the Voice and Viewpoint. Dr. Warren, we started off this month with the gala.
Yes.
It has been historical for us that every African American History Month we do the Voice and Viewpoint Gala to set kind of the tone of what it should be and what we should look like. And the paper itself gives a great presentation of the culture during that month also.
Well, and the month of February was selected by Dr. Carter G. Woodson first to do Black History Week. And that month was selected not because it was the shortest month of the year, but because it was the month in which Lincoln's birthday, Douglas' birthday, these significant birthdays were celebrated. And so we celebrate Black History Month 52 weeks a year in the Voice and Viewpoint. Every week we carry historical news, and it's always amazing the things that we're still discovering about our past that were like hidden from us, It reminds us that in the 60s, in the midst of the civil rights and the whole Black power movement, it used to be said that history was his story and not our story. And so we see a lot of that unfolding today as we look at the way things have shaped up, the information that's there. And I can only hope that our young people will begin to read more and pay more attention to what's happened in the past, because everything did not start just at the point at which people have come on the scene today. We stand on the shoulders of other people, and not only do we stand on their shoulders, but they opened the doors for us. They made the jobs available for us. They made it possible for us to be able to do things like go in a restaurant or a store and not be judged by how we look, even though some people still try to do that. And all of these things are so very, very important. So this evening, we want to invite you to join us if you like. If you have a question or a comment, we may be reached at 858-251-6111. 858-251-6111, okay? Slave owners. Someone has just run to the road, and the question asked that why did we put our celebration with the birthday of slave owners? Well, we'd like for people to remember that, that before the Mayflower was written, a lot of us didn't really get a good picture of Lincoln. We just thought of him as the savior of Black folks because he freed the slaves. And yes, he did, but it wasn't because he was a missionary or on a mission that cared as much for us. Lincoln freed the slaves as a very strategic economic move against the South, and the South economic system could not survive without slavery. The cotton and the tobacco and all the things that they did were free labor. We provided that labor. And so, also Lincoln was a Republican, and Black people voted Republican all the way up until we got to Roosevelt, out of a support and a faithfulness. And so this is why we had this month. The month was expanded from a week to a month, but this is why this is so important.
Yeah, and I think also we have a caller on the line, but I also think that we could pick several months throughout the years. There's always going to be somebody that's going to
Yes.
be celebrated from the American culture that we might not agree with. But the bottom line is that we take this opportunity to celebrate our excellence, and we keep moving forward. And I think that's what's more important than anything else. Continue to tell our history, continue
Yes.
to celebrate, and really to continue to empower our young people to continue to investigate and search. I'm going to go to the caller on the line.
Please.
Caller, welcome to
Okay.
from the Wake Up Morning.
Hey,
I'm sorry, from the Desk of the Editor.
good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
My name is Sweet,
Okay.
and but I just want to refer to the Abraham Lincoln topic.
Okay.
Did you know that his vice president Andrew Johnson was the one who thought that black people didn't have any rights in America?
Well, not only do I know that, but Andrew Johnson, if you do a study of the man, he was an accident of history if there ever was one. He was illiterate most of his life. He did not really learn to read until he was grown. He was a tailor. He was one who spent his life sewing. He stumbled into the vice presidency, and he was the first president following succeeding Lincoln. He was the first president in our history to be impeached, and he narrowly escaped impeachment because of the manner in which. So he was not a smart person, and he was one of those accidents of history where you put a person in a position, you let them hold it, and you hope nothing happens, and then you wake up and find out that something has happened, and you're faced with a tragedy. But thank you for your
And
call.
he was also he was also an alcoholic.
Well, he
So
was.
now I would like to get on my topic. Okay, so I would like to know, we live on the planet Earth, and I would like to know why, when I read the papers, when you identify an individual such as white or black or Chinese, it's referred to as race. So when will the human population acknowledge that there's only one race on this planet?
Well, let me say
that's
this,
good. That's
because
good.
first of all, we're not God, and we can't answer the questions. And there's a long history as to why people are divided into subcultures and different groups. Some of it is biblical, some of it is anthropological. So that's not an issue that we can take this limited time to resolve for you. But I'm sure if you keep reading and studying, if you go back to the Bible in the book of Genesis, for instance, and you read what happened with Noah and his three sons after the flood and where they dispersed to, if you read Ezekiel and you follow how people moved about and what happened with the human race, you'll get some insight. But we thank you for calling in, and we hope you'll continue to listen.
Yes, one of the things about it is that, he brings up a very good topic in the sense that we're all human beings.
Yes.
And that we all need to be treated fairly and equally. Let's go, let's go overseas, and let's just talk about this conflict that is starting to take place with Russia and the Ukraine and the fallout already, which I think is kind of strategic. Gas been going up for months, but now all of a sudden they get ready to go to war, and gas is just ridiculous.
Well, if you think about it, the cartels that own the oil supplies, they're not missionaries. They're in business to make money. Mm-hmm. So why should they get concerned if the potential conflict with Russia opens the door for them to make more money? Oil is now at $97 a barrel. It has been as low as 50 some dollars. In California, the gas price is exceeding $5 because this is that time of the year that they do this fabricated change from a winter to a summer blend, and that runs the price up even further. Mm-hmm. And so, but let's look at this conflict that's taking place, because a lot of us are just kind of ignoring it and say, what do I have to do with Russia, or what do I care about? Mm-hmm. Let us remember that the Union of the Socialists, of the Soviet Socialist Republic, was some 15 countries. And when it collapsed, the 11 to 14 of those countries broke away, and like the Ukraine and the other countries there, and they are in the process of trying to establish their identity. Of course, the West has a vested interest in embracing those countries and helping to keep them from Russia. And excuse me, Putin has a vested interest in not letting the West get a toehold in terms of Russia. Putin's commitment is to rebuild the Soviet Union. Now, why is that important to us? Well, if you read in the book of Ezekiel and you see the coming war that's going to take place, and you see the references to Gog and Magog, and you'll find out that Russia is the country that is the lead entity in Bible prophecy that comes against Israel. And it comes against Israel not by itself, but it has the help of Iran, possibly China or North Korea, and all of these entities. So Russia has to regroup, and Putin wants his legacy to be that he reunited as much of the Soviet Union as he possibly could, and the Ukraine is so close that it's a major issue for him. And so he's playing a high-stakes game here, and it's a very dangerous game because, if he gets frustrated and mad enough because he's losing, he could move to the nuclear option. And then that would be the end of life as we all know it, because one nuclear bomb will lead to another, and then we'll be in the world of the Book of Eli, whereas Denzel plays, because people couldn't control themselves. So this is serious times.
Yeah. Now, how let's, and I know this is going to sound crazy, but we haven't really talked very much this year about President Biden and some of the things that he is doing or not doing. Most of the talk has been around the pandemic and how the infrastructure and building infrastructure. He's got a very pivotal appointment coming up. Let's talk about that.
Yes, he does. He made a commitment that he was going to appoint the first black woman to the Supreme Court if he got a chance. It looks like he's going to have that chance. He's got 4 or 5 outstanding candidates. Those of us who lived or grew up on the East Coast know there's always been a whole bunch of brothers and sisters that are more than capable. And then if you look in D.C., where judicial appointments, unlike California where we get people running for office here, those are federal appointments. And most of those who have a federal judgeship of any kind have already been through some preliminary clearances in order to get confirmed for the position they hold. Here's the catch, though. This is the interesting thing. Congressman Clyburn has made a recommendation of a sister from South Carolina. And, of course, there's a very outstanding lady here in California who would make an outstanding judge. And
now, wait a minute. Now, that one in Carolina, she didn't go to no Ivy League school. Now,
no, and she's the only one in the group that didn't go to an Ivy League school, and so that's important. But here's a kid.
Wait, I got another one. That young lady in California, she only 45.
I know. So why not? She could be young. If they can stick Amy, stick the what's the name on Amy that's on there that they just put on. Yeah, let there be some young black folks that can be the same age and have the same longevity.
She will be the youngest one appointed to the Supreme Court, or youngest one in the Supreme Court if she's appointed.
She would be.
Yeah.
And that would be significant because she could be there for a very long time. But here's the key. Clyburn is responsible for Biden being president.
Okay.
It was not until Clyburn endorsed him that the black support took off and Biden emerged as the runner, the lead, and everything fell in place to put him in a position to become president. So does he owe Clyburn in terms of making the appointment that Clyburn once made? Because if he does, he's going to catch it either way. He's going to catch it from others. And you've got South Carolina, you got 2 people. You got Clyburn in support, and you have the crazy senator from down there that's in support of this nomination. So what do you do? And this gets to be important, a very important decision that he's grappling with.
Yeah, and I'm excited about it, not just because she's an African-American. I'm excited about the fact that there's going to be another woman appointed to the Supreme Court. And if it's the one that I think is going to be appointed, she's had some real life situations. She wasn't given the silver spoon. You know, life for her ain't been no crystal stair.
Yes.
It has some tacks and boards,
Yeah.
and
Yes.
boards torn up. I have to use a little Langston Hughes right
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
But still she rides. What about
Yeah,
Angela? Yeah.
she does, and this is so important that she does that. And they're following in the footsteps. The first black woman to become a federal judge was Constance Baker Motley, and she did an outstanding job. We've just had so many phenomenal people. I can't remember the names right now of all of the candidates that are there. One leading one has argued a number of cases before the Supreme Court already in the tradition of Thurgood Marshall. Many people just think of Marshall in terms of Brown versus Board of Education, but I believe Marshall argued 33 cases as the Solicitor General before the Supreme Court. He won 31 of those cases, and they weren't civil rights cases. They were antitrust and a whole variety of legal issues. And so this was before he became a member of the Supreme Court. And so this is a very important time. We don't want to lose track. We want to watch what's happening in terms of the president, but at the same time, we got economic issues on the table, and we need to pay attention to those as well.
Okay, so let's talk about the economic issues with the president. But then after that, I want to move a little bit closer to home and let's talk about how the community can come together, because we, even in San Diego, are seeing so many signs of violence and crime is up and things of that nature. And how do we come back and build our community stronger?
Well, unfortunately, a lot of us are not students of history, but if you go back in history, we saw in the Kerner Commission making the observation following, the death of the Kennedys and in that whole era that they made the statement that in America, where we're moving toward two societies, one black and one white, still moving. The difference is, fortunately, today we have a number of young whites who are not following their parents' footsteps, and they are supporters of Black Lives Matter. They're marching arm in arm, hand in hand, and this is a beautiful sight to see that unity. So it's not just race from them. The biggest race struggle is coming from an old guard group, a holdover, a retro element that wants to go back to life the way it used to be. It's almost like Gone with the Wind, and they've seen the plantations burn, but they still longing to try to get back to where they were. So this is important in terms of where we are. The economic issues, we have crime. A lot of the crime is the byproduct of the lockdown, shutdown. The unemployment rate is supposed to have been down, and so much money was put out there that many people didn't want to work, and yet African Americans are still carrying the brunt of unemployment. The difference is, and I want people to be aware of this, that when you hear these statistics about unemployment being 3% or 2%, don't be fooled by that. The Bureau of Labor Statistics has always played with how they count who's unemployed. And if you were a student, or if you were pregnant at home, but you were looking for part-time work, or if you had stopped looking for a job because you couldn't find one, then you were not counted. They only counted those people who were out there, and a lot of that count came from the people who were filing for unemployment in terms of it. So that was never a true picture of what was taking place. But what is true is that the inflation is a factor, and inflation will always come where people get pay raises. So we've gone to a $15 minimum wage payment in California, and national call for it, and that raises, brings inflation up. People on Social Security will get a cost of living increase, but landlords are going to raise their rent because people are getting more money. And so you kind of wonder, like, hey, well, what is the end to this? What is the purpose? This is what we're caught in. The supply ships that couldn't dock, that are waiting to unload, goods are scarce. So when supply is short and demand is great, prices go up. And so we got all of these factors working while we're still in a positive COVID environment where still close to 2,000 people a day are dying, at least 16 a day in San Diego, 16 to 20, and we're taking off the mask and acting like everything is over.
Yeah, and I believe that the governor is this coming week is going to announce that masks are not going to be mandated at schools anymore.
Yeah, and I mean, the whole school thing is ridiculous. If you consider in San Francisco, 3 school board members were recalled because of this whole battle, and then you have this element that's decided to make critical race theory, which is absurd, a part of what's going on. And
Mm.
so people are dying. Healthcare workers are burnt out. There's a shortage of nurses and a growing shortage of doctors, and hospital beds are crowded. And you would think that if they would just take the vaccine, it would reduce the stress on the system and it would work. But we've got a stubborn element that rather die than comply.
Yeah,
And there's still room to bury them.
I had this conversation with someone, and they said it's not the fact that I don't want to take the vaccine. I just don't want to be told, that I to take the vaccine or have it mandated. And the sad thing about it, I had this conversation, and I said, but you got the measles shot, you got this, you got that, you got that, and they were like saying, oh, that's before we knew better. I'm like, okay. So there's going to be that element that is going to be there. I pray for that element because there's always a conspiracy theory that is always going to be with us, and we just have to. Again, I love you, but I have to love you from a distance. And I appreciate when the kids are wearing masks because the kids are coming to school even if they're not sick with COVID. They're coming to school sick,
Yeah.
and again, when you have so many teachers that are out, and here's when you know it's bad. You know it's bad when you can't get enough substitutes to cover how many teachers are out,
That's true.
even though you're paying them double what you normally pay them.
That's true.
And watch this, and you're guaranteed 5 days a week if you become a sub.
That's true.
And wait, watch this, at the same school,
Yeah.
and they still can't fill the spots
No.
because again, the risk factor of for some people, teachers in general, don't have always the best health. You know what I'm saying? Teachers teach longer. You know what I'm saying? So they're older. So when they do get something, it can be very detrimental to the health. We just got a breaking news from CNN. Putin has announced military operation in Ukraine. You
Yeah.
know,
He's waiting
so
for him to do it. So this is the case. He's doing it.
yeah.
So it's underway, and now they're going to kick in all of these sanctions against him. And we always knew he would do it. It was just a matter of when.
So right now, you think Donald Trump is sending him love letters or sending him money or anything? What do you think is going on with them two?
I think everybody in America should stop and just realize that if Trump was president, Putin would probably be ordering military strikes from 1600
Yeah.
here. I mean, because the man is dangerous on a global scale.
Mm-hmm.
And what has been done so far, they were phasing in the sanctions. I don't think people understand that the oligarchs, there's so many people that he's made wealthy there, that America has gone after their monies, their holdings in whatever countries they are in, along with their NATO allies. They're shutting down their accounts.
Mm-hmm.
They're impounding their cash. And if they cut off the oil, the pipeline there, that they really need that pipeline, Russia is not in a position. It gets colder in Russia than it does here.
Uh-huh.
Germany and France have been trying to be strong with the alliance, but at the same time, they are purchasers of oil,
Mm-hmm.
and so we're gonna see some changes on the global scale. Of course, here gas is going to go up. People are going to be impacted here. It's not like this is a war that we're going to watch at a distance and we're not going to feel it. Yeah, we will feel it, but it's. I understand if they are really telling the truth, the kind of sanctions they're getting ready to come against Russia is just going to push him up against the wall. And I believe it could be dangerous enough if he got desperate to make him look at the nuclear button.
All right. And do we have any defense against that? Do you think the world has a defense against it?
Well, I always like to remind people as a veteran, when you consider that Putin has about 200,000 troops surrounding three sides of the Ukraine.
Hmm.
If you consider that North Korea has 100,000 troops on the 38th parallel, right there where we are, where we got that little crazy dictator still trying to experiment with and get nuclear power. And America only has, if it pulls in all of its military people, its reserves, its National Guards, and the whole bit, it only has about 500,000 active or soldiers that it can put in the field at any given time in terms of active duty. So obviously, it's not going to be a manpower issue.
Okay.
And then if you consider that we have abolished the draft, okay, which is a real issue, um, and so we, we're in a serious situation, very serious.
So, what do you think? Do you think that they might invoke the draft back in? And is having a draft still successful? Can you really successfully have a draft in this day and climate? If we can't get them to take a vaccine, how can we get them to be drafted?
Well, it's a good question, Dr. Thompson, because we have put, I think, close to 1,000 people out of the military with dishonorable discharges because they wouldn't take the vaccine.
Okay.
And I don't know how you can be in the military and think that you're in a democracy when there are orders that go to the welfare and the security of the whole system, and you're just going to decide what you're going to pick and choose.
Hmm.
My greater fear is, in World War II, we had some really brave young men and women. And if you go down and visit the Midway ship and you look at some of those planes that are there in the exhibit and those mannequins and pictures of those young men, a lot of them were less than 25. And they
Hmm.
were flying planes and they were engaged in battle, but they were committed as Americans. And I think, unfortunately, today, we don't have that kind of national commitment.
Yeah.
We've gotten so used to comfort and freedom and choice. And can't nobody tell me anything. And, the scripture says, pride goeth before a fall.
Hmm.
And so we would be in serious trouble if we had to put people in the field with a commitment to America, where most of them would want to, too many of them would want to carry the rebel flag or the swastika with
Hmm.
them and try to turn the clock back rather than focusing on the enemy that's at hand.
Yeah. So, in this time and in this season that we're in, we're really going to have to really trust God. And we're really going to have to start really prioritizing that relationship first because, what they say, much prayer, much power. Little prayer, little power, no prayer, no power.
Right.
And a lot of times we're looking for other people and other entities to do what we as the church have to do and know how to do, you know.
Well, here's a problem, Dr. Thompson, and I'm glad you made this observation. There was a time that we were a praying people as a nation. We still have national days of prayer and study groups and the whole bit. But unfortunately, uh, what the people like Jerry Falwell and them created as the Christian right has really is a very racist and one-sided entity that does not reflect God or Christianity.
Hmm.
And I've been listening to one of my favorite teachers talk about socialism,
Hmm.
and he's very accurate in terms of when he talks about Karl Marx and the whole scenario. But he doesn't allow for the fact that the Constitution is structured in such a way, like under the 10th Amendment, that all power is not given to the federal government,
Hmm.
reserved to the states, and the states are responsible for the welfare and the well-being of the people within the states. So
Hmm.
when you help a family that's got disability or children with AFDC or elderly people, um, how are we just going to label that socialism? And we don't want to give to help the people who need it most. And then we want to do that in the name of the Lord, which is a misrepresentation because Jesus was always about the poor.
And the thing about it is that, um, I have to say there's a certain pillow company that
Yeah.
my wife heard about the pillow, and she actually ordered the pillow.
Yeah.
Because the commercial was good. It was made in America and
Yep.
everything else of that nature. And then his political side came out and his support of all these left, right wing folks and everything like that. And she paid good money from them pillows. And I think she basically got rid of them pillows. She said, I can't even lay my head. I can't even get no rest on these pillows because of I'm not, help fund something that is against what we believe.
Yeah, and he's so far up Trump is not funny. If Trump would sneeze, he'd probably choke. And so, yeah, but there are people out there like that. And one of the things that African Americans and black people need to do, and I say and black because not all blacks are African American. We need to be
Or did you just say that what they say, all skin folks ain't kin
and
folks?
kin folks.
Okay.
That's a better way to put it. All
Yeah.
skin folks ain't kin folks. They
Okay.
can look like us, but it doesn't mean that they are. I always like to remind people of what the General Benjamin O. Davis Sr. said when he was the first black general in the Army. And he went to the black troops when he became a general, and they were all excited. And he looked at them and he said, I just want you to understand, I am of your color, but not your kind.
Yeah.
Okay, and so everybody that looks like us isn't us. And this is a part of the problem because we are still functioning as a bunch of individuals, and we came through segregation and integration. And integration was harmful because we came through these things in a collective fashion. When Jackie Robinson made it, he made it for all of us and those who followed him. When Jesse Owens made it, he made it for all of those that were going to run. Okay, and so when Tiger Woods came along, Tiger Woods took the position that he wasn't a black. He called himself
Malaysian.
Asian and whatever. But as far as the world is concerned, you're still black. All right, and so we still have these individuals who don't want to be who they are, but who are viewed by how they look. And here in San Diego, this is especially important because we have strong African communities here who virtually, and I have worked at it for the past 20 years. I've tried to integrate the African communities with the African American communities, and I have run into great resistance. Sometimes I think they give them an orientation class when they bring them into the country and tell them just stay away from us. And you have arrogance and racism, and I'm not going to start calling names here in terms of creating a further issue. But to the other side, to the people who don't look like us, until you open your mouth, you're just black. And so, and you don't get a pass just because you have an accent.
But one of the things about it is simply this, is that there has been a lot of propaganda that has been shared around the world of what American African Americans or American blacks are. And so many times people would like to criticize American black or African Americans without realizing that without the African Americans, they would not even be relevant, in so many different realms, because it's kind of like it is the African Americans in America that kept on saying we need to learn more about our culture. We need to expose. Before there was roots, nobody was talking about Africa.
Well, no. And, when Jimmy Carter became president and he brought Andrew Young along, Andrew Young had been a member of Congress from Georgia, and then he went on to become an ambassador. And he and I have talked many times about the desire for a lot of people in Africa to have African Americans come over and do business, but so many didn't have any business to bring. It's almost like when the first Super Bowl came to San Diego, and my late wife was a part of that committee. When you get the Super Bowl, you get all of the receptions and the whole thing. Well, a funny thing happened in our community. There was an entity that wanted to have a big reception and put a tent up on the Qualcomm then stadium grounds, and they could not find a black catering business strong enough to handle the contract.
Yeah.
And they ended up getting 4 or 5 of them consolidating, trying to do it, and it still didn't work out.
Exactly.
Okay. And if you look at it, we don't have black gas station owners in San Diego.
Do we even have a
Chaldeans
black
own it.
cleaners anymore?
No, we don't have a black cleaners. The one that we had for the last one was over there on Market Street. And when that closed down, that was it, and we used to have a black clothing store up there I forget the brother's name now. He's dead off of Federal and 47th Street.
Okay.
Up in that area, back in the days of what I heard was the Black Frog and
Yeah.
all of these business entities, and all these things shut down because integration was a blessing and a curse.
Hmm.
It was a blessing in terms of bringing us to equality. It was a curse in terms of us getting absorbed and thinking that because we had arrived, we didn't have to be concerned about where we came from anymore or who we were.
Yeah, and that's the one thing about it is that um, being going to places, integrating, learning about other cultures, given opportunities, does not mean that our hustle has to stop at that point. We have always been a people that have been trained to have multiple streams of income. I don't know about you, but if you didn't have a job, you could go pick up some cans. Or remember when the bottles you get like a nickel for every bottle you turned in?
Yeah, you could get
Yeah.
that. And let me just say, a sister just gave me the word. It was Bedell Clothiers was the brother's name who had the clothing store,
Hmm.
and he sold clothes until everybody started going downtown and things began to open up. Okay, and so we never worked at making our dollar recycle in our community the way
Hmm.
other people have.
Yeah.
We let the dollar out and we let it go every place. Other people keep the dollar in terms of the flow.
Well, always here, and this we laugh about this a lot of time, but it always seems like people feel like their water is colder and their clothing is better. I don't know about you, but Jordache jeans didn't wear no different than Kmart jeans. You know what I'm saying? They just had Jordache on them.
Well, the thing that you were quoting was called that ice was colder,
Yeah.
and that came from. I always like this to be a historical piece that before we had refrigerators, we had an ice box,
Hmm.
and the ice box, the truck would come around, and they would chop off a block of ice
Hmm.
to put in your ice box, which kept your food cold. It wasn't big like the refrigerators today.
Hmm.
And so when the black guy would come selling ice, the black community wouldn't buy his ice.
Hmm.
But when the white man came with the same ice was ice, then they would buy
Hmm.
the white man's ice. And the theory was that his ice was colder. I did the same thing. I saw him do the same thing with watermelons. Uh,
Yeah.
the black guy would come with his wagon and his barrel with ice in it and water with watermelon down in it, and he would come along. In those days, you could buy a big watermelon for $1,
Hmm.
and what they would do is the man would cut out a plug of a watermelon
Hmm.
and pull out the plug so you could see how ripe it
Hmm.
was. Okay, he didn't mind doing
And let you
that.
taste it too.
Yes, and he would let you taste it. But a lot of us wouldn't buy from the brother. They waited for the white man to bring his wagon by with watermelon because his ice and his watermelons were colder.
Exactly. And so how do we reformulate the minds of us as a people? Because like we have a lot of millionaires and billionaires, but it doesn't seem like they own plants and development and manufacturing, but they have flossy stuff.
Well, we
But and
must
can I say this?
sure
But they have made great investments in owning weed
in what?
and owning marijuana,
Oh
CBD.
yes. Well, yeah, and that's one of the great tragedies of the day because now we have people trying to get cannabis licenses, and some of the very people who have police records were our folks who sold it when it was illegal. And
Yep.
now that it's legal, they can't get a license,
Can't get a
and
license.
they can't get a reprieve from the records that's there for the time when it was illegal. And
Yep.
so those are the issues. But if we look closely at America, there has always been a campaign against us coming forward.
Hmm.
If we look at housing, I mean, yeah, they celebrated last year, a year before, 50 years since the Housing Act. But the Housing Act itself was racist the way it was structured.
Hmm.
The banks didn't loan the same amount of money to black veterans coming home from World War II as they
Hmm.
did to whites. And they set up suburbia. And the racism is apparent even today.
Hmm.
It's very difficult to buy a house in San Diego, but if you're black and you don't mind the drive, how many years, for the past 25, 30 years, you could buy property in Temecula or in Hemet, and people are still buying up there because the prices are cheaper. The building is building up, is taking place. You and I remember when you went up 15, the cows owned
Yep.
the whole thing. That's all you could smell were cows. Well, the
Hmm.
cows have been moved out, and the developments have come in, and the shopping centers and the whole bit, and so they call it progress. You know,
Yeah.
I used to go up to up in that area on Saturday night when I was in the horse business. I would go up there and buy horses because I could buy a horse real cheap up in that area. The same horse I could get up there for $200 or $300. If I bought it down here in San Diego, it cost me 3 or 4 thousand.
Hmm.
But then it's always been structured uh, against us, and some of us have been smart enough to overcome, but a lot of us have not shared the knowledge, and we haven't reached back
Hmm.
to help others. And then you can't reach back and help everybody because some of the very people you're trying to help will rip you off, and so there's a risk factor that goes with it.
Hmm. Well, let me ask you this question because I was having this conversation even on the morning show, but just the respect of the elders, just the respect of the history and those that go before us. You know, there's been a a synergy of energy around. If you would just move out the way and let us handle it from here, we can get it done. But it seems like we're one of the few cultures that believe that way, whereas other cultures lift up and honor their elders, and they sit at the feet of the elders to learn. And you see more generational wealth that way than the way we've been going about it. Let's talk about that.
Well, because we've been programmed. Let's remember that going back to slavery, if two black folks spoke the same language, they were separated.
Hmm.
Children were sold, mothers were sold, fathers were sold. If you go back and look in the Jim Crow era, a black man couldn't find a job, so he had to leave his family. And then he was listed as being irresponsible. The white folks came around in the middle of the night to see if he was in the house, and the black woman on welfare was treated differently than a white woman on
Hmm.
welfare with the kids. So it's always been a war against the male. If you look at the Maquiladores program in Mexico, that's a perfect up close example where these companies have gone over there and built these plants. 99% of the workers in these plants are Mexican females. And what did they do? They brought in cosmetics, designer jeans, and all of that stuff, stores within the plants. They didn't hire the men. So now the women are making more than their husbands. The husbands didn't have to come across the border illegally, do farm work or whatever. There's still that war against the family. There's
Hmm.
that war against the unit. And that's not played out against any other group like it's played out against people of color.
Hmm. And I think the thing about it is that my encouraging factor to the young and upcoming is to make sure that they honor the elders. You know, it's not about moving people out of the way. It is really truly about everybody playing their position and their role. And what I mean by that is that as a team effort, I played football. I played baseball, I played some other thing. But if I was ever to play football again, knowing what I know now, I would have changed my whole position and I would have did the best job at becoming the best place kicker, punter in the league because there was something about that position that they never glamorized it. But that position can win a game.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
it's developed into, and I'm not even a football fan, but it's a whole culture that's sprung up around that position,
yeah,
and there are people who train folks for that position who have nothing to do in terms of the leagues themselves
yeah.
because of how important it is. So you're absolutely right.
And I'd have made kicker be so glamorous. I'd have came on with the kicking foot would have had a gold slipper on it. I would have made that position knowing what I know now and knowing that my uniform can stay pretty clean because if they touch me, it's a penalty. And I might have to run after somebody, but if everybody do their job, all I gotta do is kick and move.
Well, yeah, but again, we see the big lawsuit that's against the NFL right now in terms of the whole discrimination about hiring coaches, and it's really a tragedy because there's no reason in the world why the NFL should be a nonprofit with all the money that they generate. and the government lets them get away with it. And if you or I try to do
Doctor,
something with 50
Doctor,
cents,
Doctor Warren, Doctor Warren, Doctor Warren. You can't just drop that nugget on everybody about them being a nonprofit and not explaining it, because half the folks under it. I mean, they almost wrecked their car when they heard that.
yeah.
Break that down. How is the NFL a nonprofit?
Well, you got all these teams that are wealthy white males that own these teams, and they have these organizations, and the organizations make the money, and the money that they make, they don't pay taxes on it because it's set up as a nonprofit. And so when you got a nonprofit, you can pay out as much as you want as long as you're not keeping money that would otherwise be given out to people as a dividend if it was for profit.
Mm-hmm.
And so I mean everybody's getting over it. I mean they're making big money. And people losing. But I want to say something about what you said about respecting the elders. My grandfather was a very wise man, and he told me a couple of things that were always stood out. One of them that I share with young people today is my grandfather told me. He says, I'm gonna tell you something about old people. And I said, what's that? I called him Big Daddy. I said, what's that, Big Daddy? He says, I want you to remember that old people don't get old being stupid. Okay? And so we got a lot of people that think they know everything.
Mm-hmm.
But if you stop and listen and watch, you understand why some of us are still around.
Yeah.
Okay? Because some of us have learned some things that brought some caution to life, and you can benefit from those things if you pay attention.
Yeah, and I kid you not. I have been working on a jug of coins.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And after I finish that jug of coins and fill that jug of coins up, I'm gonna open up a savings account with it for my grandbaby.
Yeah.
Okay, and you know where I've seen a lot of people do it, but who had it down to a science was Grandma Jones. Every purse, every pocketbook had coins in it.
Yeah.
And if she, baby, go get my pocketbook, and she didn't dump the coins out, and $200, $300, $400 of coins, and I was wondering what she would do because she always had coins, and I was like saying that I watch how older people, how they will take something and we got food savers now. But they used to preserve stuff, you know what I'm
Yes,
saying?
yes.
And they would do certain things that when times got rough, they didn't, I wonder why Grandma and Grandpa had 4 freezers. You know what I'm saying?
Oh,
But they
yeah.
were laying the foundation. If you ever got hungry, all you had to do is go over and there was something in one of the freezers for
Well,
you.
even that, Leonard, because I often talk about my grandfather who was a waiter on the railroad, the seaboard, for 44 years. And he bought his house and property and everything off that salary and his tips. And I've often shared that when that train stopped at that little town in North Carolina, Henderson, and folks were getting off down on the passenger end, my grandmother knew exactly where to stand on the platform for where the dining car was going to be. And the train would stop right where she was. That car was there. He would open that door in his white jacket with the silver buttons, swing down off that, hand her this big cloth napkin that was full of all of his tips. She would give him a bag with his additional shirts. And in those days, he wore the collars that you could attach. So the guys could take the collars off when they were working and take their jackets off. And when they got ready to serve people, they put the collar on the shirt they had on and the jacket. And you couldn't see the shirt underneath.
Exactly.
Okay? And so, but they used their money wisely. And the whole wealth class in Atlanta was built on working black people who saved their money and made wise decisions in terms of what they did. They didn't have credit cards, and yeah, they knew that they were getting ripped off often by white folks, but they went along with the program because they had a plan, and they didn't let pride stand in the way of what they were trying to do. And
Yeah.
so these are important lessons that we could learn again today. You made a question earlier. A lot of our young people, as soon as they get of age and they can get a job, the first thing they want to do is leave home and go get their own place.
Yeah.
If you look in other cultures, you will see people come over here and get in a house, some sleeping in the bathtub. Half of them didn't know what a toilet was, but they lived there with their little rice bowl. They helped each other save enough money to make that first down payment on that house.
Yep.
And they learned in California especially, they learned in my lifetime here that if you put down 25% on a property, then you didn't have to go through any finance clearance. You could just 25% and you could get a deal. So everybody
Exactly.
pitched their money in to get that 25%, and they help. And next thing you know, they own the street. You see the bars going up, and you know they done all bought the place because they didn't help each other. We have gotten away from that in terms of wanting to help each other. We got a lot of young black people that come to San Diego. They don't even know there's life south of 8,
Yeah.
and that's unfortunate.
They don't. Some of them don't even have never been to the ocean or the beach or things of that nature. They literally don't know, and that's what's really sad. But but they have the latest of everything on,
Oh
and
yes,
that's the thing that you want to say. Look, when you look at investing your money, when you look at how you're going to go about it, you have to realize that you can't just be wasteful, especially in these times. Especially in these times, so many people are just wasting money with floss, and they want to. They're more concerned about what people think of them than what really they are. You know what I'm saying?
so true.
And so, that's just my encouragement. As we move forth in today's society, it is going to be so important that we, one, respect our elders, two, learn from the past, three, let's collectively work and build these empires that we can do just by working together. Dr. Warren, any final words? I got a couple of surprises I want to do with you tonight, but any final
No,
words that you
I'm going
have?
to go with your surprises.
Well, this one is, so very proud. We have a intern here, and she was given an assignment. And when she was given the assignment, I was like, oh, okay, that's nice. But not only did she do the assignment, she researched the assignment, she wrote the assignment, and then she recorded the assignment. So take a listen.
Dr. John E. Warren is a man worthy of being honored this Black History Month. He's held the position as the publisher of the San Diego Voice and Viewpoint paper for over 30 years. His extensive political background started at the age of 17, working under Adam Clayton Powell on Capitol Hill. He's worked with the dynamic Shirley Chisholm and served on Washington, D.C.'s Board of Education, and even had a friendship with the late Dick Gregory. Dr. Warren is best described as a walking encyclopedia. He knows the Word of God like the back of his hand. He is the embodiment of 2 Timothy 2:15 as he pastors and shares his knowledge at the Eagle's Nest Christian Worship Center. Along with his knowledge of the Word, Dr. Warren holds an emporium's worth of knowledge of Black American history. If you've had the privilege of conversing with him, then you've witnessed his recall of the knowledge he's acquired, being second to none as he graciously shares his wisdom with those who are willing to listen. We are honored to recognize Dr. Warren this Black History Month, as he is a prime example of Black history. We as Black San Diegans and citizens of this nation are blessed to have him as our teacher and mentor, our journalist and resource, pastor and father figure, and our friend overall. We love you, Dr. Warren. Thank you for all that you have done and all that you continue to do.
Well,
Wow.
there you go. I mean,
Oh,
there's a young person that you have literally mentored, fathered, pastored for many years, and now she is a grown young lady,
yes.
still giving back and still learning.
That is so nice, Amara. Thank you so much. That is so heartwarming and touching. They say give us our flowers while we can smell them, and that is just that's just awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. And what I loved about this is, how sometimes you give out assignments and then they come and ask you to do all the work.
Yeah.
No, she asked for the resources, and she said, "Now I need to know X, Y, and Z." And I basically started handing her numbers and telling her, "Okay, make this phone call, make this phone call." She followed it to the T, and who's really proud of her is the program director, Miss Evangel. She's the one who gave her the assignment. I didn't even know it was coming.
Wow.
But she said to me that when she talked to Amara and she began to work with Amara, she realized that Amara had a story to tell and that she had a special gifting, and that she wanted to make sure that that was going to be nurtured here. And so I was really pleased that how she has grown and is still growing.
Well, I am just so excited about what she's doing here. I am, Amara, I'm just deeply honored. As one caller shared on the screen said, this was a dedicated intern, but this is the kind of person that she's always been. She's serious about everything she does. She throws her heart into Bible study, into the Word, into just being a part of people and learning. And I'm just honored to have her as one of those lives that I can touch.
Yeah. So, Dr. Warren, well, we got about 4 minutes. Again, African American History Month, lots of things are going on. And you might say, can you give me a breakdown of what's getting ready to happen and everything like that? No, I cannot, because you can pick up the Voice and Viewpoint on tomorrow.
Tomorrow morning is on the street, and tomorrow afternoon is on the internet.
And you can find out everything you need to know. And then, we're excited here because Jazz at the Creek this year is going to be second to none. I already got the little flyer starting to go, and Dr. Warren, it's funny. I don't even ask the Voice and Viewpoint anymore because I just know when we get ready to do these things, they're right alongside with us. But we're gonna announce very, very soon the full lineup. But I tell you, Dr. Warren, this year, if San Diego, as a matter of fact, I would say if Black San Diego don't come out to this Jazz at the Creek, I don't know what we're gonna do.
Well, they're gonna come. They want to get out, and they're gonna be ready to get out, and we're gonna help promote getting them out. And we believe very strongly that our people can support ourselves, that we don't have to wait till somebody comes from out of town to make a thing happen.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to say I was looking at our wording, and I want to think Amara's response was that it was an honor to take on this particular project, and I'm honored that she took the project on. Matter of fact, I don't know, in my 30-some years here or my 50 years, I don't know of anyone who's ever done what she just did in terms of going back. So many times, when you get older and your accumulation of information, I didn't understand when I was younger why older people only spoke when you asked them a question. But I'm learning now that you want to conserve what you say, and you only want to speak to the ones who are listening.
Yeah.
Okay. And Dr. Thompson, you heard me tell the story before, just briefly before we go, because it's so relevant, about the young man who came up to the old man on the side of the road and asked him, how far is it to the next town? And the old man wouldn't say anything. He asked him about 4 times, and around the 4th time, he just got frustrated and started walking away. And the old man hollered at him and said, hey, wait a minute. And the young man turned and said, what do you want? I just asked you how far it was. And the old man said, before I could answer you, I had to see how fast you were walking.
Yeah.
Okay.
And see that was very relevant. And I have to end with this. I'm watching this new TV show called Abbott Elementary School.
Okay.
And the teacher is trying to teach, one of the male teachers, he's supposed to be a temporary teacher, and he's trying to teach math, and he's trying to teach, not to the test, but he's teaching to the test, and he's running drills. And so he said, he made this thing with the kids. He said, look, Farmer John has 4 cows. He buys 4 more cows. How many cows does Farmer John have? And basically, the kid raises his hand. Well, is any of the cows pregnant? And so he gets upset with the with the class. And so then he's telling the teachers about it. And they said, well, let's see your stuff. And so he did the same thing with them. And the first thing the teacher said, well, are any of the cows pregnant? And he said, that's relevant thinking because, again, you're allowing them to be critical thinkers and beyond just a robot.
Right.
It was so funny because, again, some of the questions that are asked or are not asked really gives you an answer. Because how far is it depends on how fast you're walking.
That's true. And about the kid that asked if the cow's pregnant?
Yeah.
One of the oldest cases in common law involved the sale of a horse that was pregnant. And the question came up when the foal was born, did the foal belong to the man who bought the horse, or did it belong to the one who sold the horse?
Yeah.
And so whether or not the cow's pregnant, it was a very insightful question on the part of the student.
Exactly.
Thank you.
There you go, from the desk of the editor, another edition. This is Dr. Leonard Thompson with Dr. John Warren from the desk of the editor. Y'all stay tuned. Get your newspapers tomorrow, fresh off the stand. We're excited about this issue.